Hi everyone, this is Ali Hussein Kasim from Ali Talks Tech. In this week's roundup of tech news in Africa and across the world that affect the African tech ecosystem, I am looking at several stories. First, Starlink's explosive growth in Kenya. Secondly, we'll look at insights from the 8th Saccos AgriFin Learning Event that is currently happening in Kenya, in Nairobi. Then I will look at Saccos outperforming banks in loan disbursements over the last 8-month period in Kenya. We then go to the world of AI, where OpenAI announces massive $6.6 billion funding, valuing the company at more than $150 billion. What does this mean to tech and to businesses in general? Then we go to a fintech in the US called GreenCheck. And I'm saying this tongue-in-cheek because this fintech is revolutionizing financial services for cannabis businesses. Yes, you heard that right. Ganja, bangi. It is revolutionizing this space, a fintech. So we'll come back to that story much later. Let's look at Starlink's growth in Kenya and Africa in general. So I'm one of those guys who sort of like, really, what are they going to do, But let me just tell you, as a famous radio presenter in Nairobi will start, let me tell you, Maina, Starlink has caused upheavals in the internet service provision space in Kenya and Africa. Let's look at personally. I use Safaricom Home Fiber at the Diamond plan, which gives me 100 Mbps. A couple of weeks ago, I got a bump to 500 Mbps. No extra cost. Go figure. This surge, these guys have grown 2,000% since they launched in the country in July 2023. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine on LinkedIn, on WhatsApp, just today morning, and I would love to read to you what he actually told me. And I found that quite insightful. He told me, Ali, I like your post on Starlink today, bro. One thing I will add is that I think a lot of people that have moved to Starlink, the 0.5% market share that they have gleaned out of the incumbents, the Jamis, the Safaricoms, what is the other service provider called? I've even forgotten them. Yeah, that one, Zuku. That Starlink is probably 0.5% of the top 2% of heavy users of internet of small businesses and individuals. Then he concludes by saying, there is numbers and then there is spenders. I think that's a very interesting insight, even for me. So we had this conversation, like the people who are actually moving right now, who can afford that Starlink before those costs come down and before the upfront costs for hardware come down. Those are the people who can actually afford high internet bandwidth services. This is food for thought for incumbents. So is this surge reshaping the digital landscape across Africa? So let me give you some quick numbers or some quick things for you to consider. 1, high speed, low latency connectivity reaching remote areas. Now, I want to stop here and just talk about this remote area issue. Quite a number of African countries, including Kenya, has something called the Universal Service Fund, USF. That USF is a fund collected from telcos and large technology companies. I think in Kenya it's 1% or 2%. I'm not sure of the percentage. We can check that. We can check that later. But the point is that money that is collected annually, 1% of top-line revenue, is supposed to go to Universal Service Fund. And this USF is supposed to fund internet services in areas that commercial ISPs like Safaricom, Jamii, Zuku find that either it's too inaccessible or it's not commercially viable for them to launch internet services there. Now, unfortunately, USFs haven't really worked the way they are supposed to work in Africa. And that's why Starlink is going to be a game changer in these remote areas, not just for people who live in these remote areas, but for people who are going in to do projects in those remote areas. They can access internet. It used to be super expensive to do that. So that cost has come dramatically down. That's a game changer. Number two, 96.9% of satellite customers now enjoy speeds between 100 Mbps and 1 GB. That's crucial. 96.9%. I mean, if I look at my speeds right now, let me do a quick speed test on my laptop. I'm looking at speeds of 695 Mbps download. This is the first time ever, guys. I mean, this is a shame even for me to say, somebody who's been in this tech ecosystem for the better part of almost 30 years. I mean, I've been in this space even before my son Imrania was born. So 695 download, 565 upload. I'm going to show you this. So now incumbents are realizing what's up, what's going on. This is what we need to do. Then Starlink has quickly captured the 0.5% market share in fixed data subscriptions. What does this mean in terms of competition, in terms of the whole general internet service provision in Kenya and across Africa? Number one, I foresee an accelerated digital transformation drive in rural areas. Number two, increased competition driving down internet costs. We've already seen that. I mean, these figures would have cost me maybe 50K if I wanted these numbers. Today, I'm getting the same. I'm getting like 6x. I mean, I am 100 Mbps. I'm getting 6x at the same cost. Then, of course, we have new opportunities for education, healthcare, and business in previously underserved regions. Guys, there you have it. That's just one competitor, and he's just started. I think Starlink is probably in about 15 African countries. Some countries have blocked it. I suppose there is some state capture in those countries. Incumbents are lobbying to make sure that they don't have access to their markets. Now, let me go to my next story on the ongoing AgriFin Learning Event. I think for me, I attended that yesterday. It's a 2-day event. Unfortunately, I was not able to do that today because of pressure of work. But spending half a day yesterday at the AgriFin Learning Event was such an eye-opener. I sat on a panel with people across the continent discussing AgriTech, the intersection between AgriTech and Fintech, and exploring AgriTech funding across the continent. Here's some numbers for us to chew. As of Q3 2024, there were at least 745 active AgriTechs, with more than half, 426 companies, having received funding since 2014. This amounts to over 1.5 billion across 700 investments. Now, I want to spend a bit of time in AgriTech and some of the things that we discussed yesterday. First, I think Africa has a serious food security problem, which can be solved if a number of things come together: the right funding, the right policy, and the right education and capacity building for farmers across the continent. Having said that, we are facing a very, I wouldn't say interesting, we are facing a crisis in food security and food access in this continent of ours, despite the fact that 60% of the world's available arable land is in Africa. It takes a small country like Ukraine to go to war for food prices to double in Africa. I think we have a problem, guys. And we have a problem, and this problem needs to be solved from a multi-stakeholder perspective. Private sector, government, funders, both local and international, to come in and solve this problem. I mean, it's a real shame. It's a shame in terms of access to markets, in terms of capacity building for farmers, in terms of infrastructure to and from farms, in terms of the fact that statistically we are utilizing very little of our available God-given assets in agriculture. I liked what the CEO of Loop DFS made a presentation yesterday and talked about how focusing on just rice farming, we are only accessing 17% of land and resources available for rice production in this country. And the result is that we are importing 90% of our rice needs in this country. Guys, really, I mean, this is a big shame. And we all have to just come together and ensure that things change. My next story is on Saccos in Kenya. So Saccos are savings and credit cooperatives. In the US, they may be called the credit unions. For the first time, I think, in the first 8-month period of this year, more loan disbursements from Saccos have gone out to members or customers. This is an interesting trend, and it highlights how crucial the Saccos sector is in expanding credit for many Kenyans. Here are the key points. 1, Saccos issued more loans than commercial banks in the first 8 months of the year. Borrowers are increasingly choosing Saccos over traditional banks. Credit growth by Saccos stood at 9.3% year on year as of August this year. Saccos typically offer lower interest costs, averaging around 12% on reducing balances. Those 4 key points are very crucial. Why is this happening? 1, of course, the new regime of an open market and free market in financial services. Kenya has its pluses and minuses. The fact of the matter is the Central Bank of Kenya a couple of years ago started talking about risk-based lending. But I am not so sure many banks have taken that to heart. You know, we are still very traditional in what we do when we're talking about loans. You must have land or building for collateral and stuff like that. That's slowly changing, but it's not changing fast enough. This is important. First, I think Saccos are in a unique position because they are owned by those members. So you are finding also the NPLs, the non-performing loans in Saccos, is a lot less than banks. Let me say this. That's the positive side. I think the other side is that Saccos need to accelerate their digital transformation. Today morning, I was discussing with a couple of friends of mine, and the onboarding for new members for Saccos online, man, is horrendous. I mean, you get to a point you're not even sure what they're asking you, you abandon it. So having said that, I think Saccos are leaving a lot of money on the table. Not just that. The transformation needs to go beyond just saving and taking loans. It needs to go into investment. It needs to go offering different investment vehicles like mutual funds, unit trusts, real estate, investing in the startups across the region. I think this is where the opportunity is, and these Saccos need to step up so that they can offer their customers more than just loans. If they don't do that, I think this growth that we are seeing will diminish. There's a lot of work to be done still. So this is, we can celebrate for a minute or two, but then we need to just roll up our sleeves and go back to work. My next conversation is on OpenAI's massive 6.6 billion funding. I mean, guys, whoa. The poster child of the AI revolution, OpenAI, creator of ChatGPT, raised $6.6 billion at a valuation of $157 billion. This makes it one of the world's most valuable private companies. Mark my words, guys. This valuation is going to quadruple. So if you have access to invest in this company, this is the time. The key highlights: it now boasts over 200 million active users. I'm one of those. 92%, now this is crucial, 92% of Fortune 500 companies are using OpenAI's technologies. Major partnerships including PwC, one of their biggest or the biggest client, and the first official ChatGPT reseller. So I am just curious, and I'm penning a post on this. What exactly is PwC doing as a reseller of ChatGPT? What is it that one of the largest consulting companies can tell me in terms of how to use OpenAI? I mean, I love the fact that they've jumped onto this bandwagon and say, no. Our customers come through us instead of going through directly to ChatGPT. So I'm not sure whether that's a viable conversation to have in 2024, where you have a reseller for AI platforms. What are you reselling? I'd be really, really curious to get to understand this. Now, what is interesting about this funding round also is that NVIDIA and Microsoft are one of the top companies or Fortune 500 companies who've put in more money into ChatGPTs. I want to read you guys something that is very interesting. OpenAI's journey from a non-profit to a capped profit model has clearly paid off. Clearly. I mean, I use an AI platform called Perplexity. And for that $20 a month premium user function on Perplexity has just completely changed my life. So this move to a profit model, it has clearly paid off, attracting top talent and investors alike with new offerings like GPT, Dash 4.0, Mini, and ChatGPT. They are pushing the boundaries of AI innovation. Guys, what do you think? What do you think about this, and what does this mean for the future of AI? My last conversation is about and how it is being pushed by Fintech. Founded in 2017, GreenCheck has grown to serve over 4,000 cannabis operators. Yes, guys. For you guys who don't know what cannabis means, just means guys who are doing bangi at scale. And 125 financial institutions over 38 states in the US. Their innovative platform is helping banks and credit unions navigate the cannabis industry's complex regulatory landscape. Here are the key highlights. GreenCheck's software ensures companies comply with FinCEN guidelines. This is crucial for financial services, and especially because there's a thin line between these guys and El Chapo. You guys know who El Chapo is? So this is something that has to be navigated in a very, very delicate manner. And I love the way this fintech is actually enabling this ecosystem to operate within a very complex regulatory landscape. The company has facilitated over 4.5 billion in transactions. And then they have recently also raised $6 million in a Series A funding led by a VC called Mendon Venture Partners. So as this industry continues to evolve, fintech solutions like GreenCheck are paving the way for safer, more efficient financial operations. What are your thoughts, guys? How about that 60% of the world's arable land? How about just 10% of that goes into cannabis? It will transform this continent. What do you guys think? Thank you, guys. It's been an interesting week of evolution and news across the African ecosystem and the world at large. Talk to you guys next week, Asante.